There is a quiet truth about pulling away from the world. It does not arrive with a loud crash. It is not a sudden, violent break from the reality you know. It is not the silence of boredom. It is not the bitter sting of being cast out by the crowd. It does not look like a dramatic retreat into the mountains. Instead, it happens in the smallest, most invisible spaces. Picture this. You are sitting in your car. The engine is off. The driveway is completely dark. The keys are still in the ignition. You have nowhere else to be. Your home is just steps away. The glowing red numbers on the dashboard clock read 6:14 p.m., then 6:15 p.m. You let the minutes slip away. You grip the cold leather of the steering wheel. You feel the heavy, invisible weight of the day pressing down on your shoulders. The text messages on your phone sit unanswered in your pocket, vibrating with demands you simply cannot meet. You delay opening the door. You sit in the cold, dim cabin of the vehicle. You listen to the faint ticking of the cooling engine. In this exact moment, the absolute quiet inside this metal box is the only thing making sense to your nervous system. This is how you disappear, not physically, but psychologically. On the surface, nothing happens. It looks like hesitation. It looks like fatigue. But inside, a profound fracture occurs. You are severing the invisible strings pulling at your attention. You are sinking deep into the sanctuary of the self. The external world demands constant performance. Here, in the dark, nothing is demanded. They assume it is sadness. They assume you are drowning in a tragic loneliness. But you are actually breathing for the first time all day. We are taught to fear the quiet. We are conditioned to view isolation as a punishment. We view distance as a disease. Paradoxically, for you, it is the exact opposite. Isolation is not your cage. It is your oxygen. You do not retreat into the dark to hide. You retreat into the dark to finally see clearly. You pull away to stop the bleeding of your own energy. Solitude is not an exile, but a kingdom. When we look at this through the clinical lens, we must dismantle the lie you have been sold. Psychology often refers to this state, not as a deficit, but as a profound developmental milestone. The psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott once described a phenomenon known simply as the capacity to be alone. You have likely internalized a toxic narrative. You have been told that your desire to withdraw is an avoidant attachment. You have been diagnosed by armchair experts. You have absorbed the idea that your intense need for absolute space is a flaw in your emotional wiring. You think you are broken because you cannot tolerate the endless social friction. But Winnicott saw it differently. He argued that the ability to thrive in deep, absolute isolation is actually one of the highest markers of emotional maturity. It means your psyche has built a secure internal environment. You do not need the external gaze to confirm you exist. When you isolate, your nervous system is executing a brilliant, deeply ingrained psychological program. It is a necessary adaptation. When you are constantly surrounded by the noise of expectations, your psyche deploys the false self, a protective, adaptive mask designed to navigate social environments. The false self smiles. The false self nods. The false self nods. The false self absorbs the emotional bullets of the day. It keeps you safe, but it drains your life force. Because you process the emotional frequencies of the room so intensely, your brain requires an absolute vacuum to recalibrate. You are not isolating because you hate connection. You are isolating because you respect your own biological limits. The capacity to be alone means you have successfully internalized safety. You become your own anchor in the void. You are not empty when you are by yourself. Paradoxically, you are overflowing. The external quiet allows your internal true self to finally speak. You are meeting yourself in the exact space where the noise ends. The capacity for silence is the highest maturity. We must flip the script on how you view your own withdrawal. The narrative you tell yourself is heavily laced with guilt. You decline the invitation. You leave the message unread for 3 days. You lock the front door. You hear the heavy metallic click of the deadbolt. And then, the quiet guilt creeps in. You wonder if you are becoming entirely too cold. Let us look at the paradoxical logic of your behavior. This is not an anti-social defense mechanism. This is a highly evolved emotional boundary. You do not isolate because you are fragile. You isolate because you are fiercely protective of your inner alignment. The world operates on a currency of constant, exhausting exchange. Every conversation demands a piece of your energy. Every interaction requires a transaction. You are a sponge that has absorbed the heavy ocean of external demands, and you must routinely be wrung out. In absolute isolation, the masks dissolve. You are not running away from life. You are running toward your own baseline. It is not a fear of intimacy, but a pursuit of absolute authenticity. When there is no one around to perceive you, you do not have to perform. You do not have to shrink. You do not have to expand to fill a socially acceptable mold. You thrive in absolute isolation because it is the ultimate rebellion against a reality addicted to noise. It is an act of psychological sovereignty. You are taking back the territory of your own mind. You realize that deep peace is found in the complete absence of expectations. You strip away the obligations. You remove the heavy external gaze. And what is left is the raw, unedited version of you. The darkness of your solitude is not a terrifying void. It is a blank canvas. It is the only place where your energy belongs entirely, undeniably to you. The quiet is a boundary, not a barrier. Yet we must explore the invisible ache of this existence. Thriving in isolation is a brilliant psychological adaptation, but it carries a heavy toll. There is an agonizing internal tug of war that you fight in the absolute silence. The solitude is your sanctuary, but sometimes the void echoes back a little too loudly. You navigate a complex, contradictory emotional landscape when no one is watching. On one side, you hold a deep, undeniable craving to be truly seen. You want a connection that does not drain your marrow. You crave a soul who can sit in the same room with you, reading a book, without demanding a single syllable of your energy. You want parallel play for adults. You want presence without pressure. But on the other side stands your heavy psychological armor. The moment someone steps into your sacred space, the mental noise begins. The hyper-vigilance kicks in immediately. The fatigue of having to translate your vast internal world into tiny, digestible words becomes entirely paralyzing. This is the sharp paradox of your reality. You are starving for depth, yet you are completely allergic to surface-level noise. So, you choose the quiet. You choose it again and again. But choosing it does not erase the phantom ache. You sit in your meticulously crafted isolation. You feel completely at peace. Yet, you quietly wonder if you have made yourself too unreachable. You look at the ease with which others mingle, laugh, and connect over trivial things, and a quiet, heavy grief washes over you. You ask yourself if you have built a trap. You wonder if the beautiful sanctuary you built is slowly becoming a fortress. You cannot leave. The deepest exhaustion comes not from being alone. It comes from constantly defending your right to be alone. The fatigue lives in the brutal space between what you deeply crave and what your nervous system can actually tolerate. It is a lonely, silent victory. You win your peace, but you pay for it with absolute misunderstanding. Peace often costs the warmth of the crowd. Perhaps it is time to stop fighting your own fundamental nature. Maybe you can finally lay down the heavy, useless guilt. We are not here to force a bright, shiny cure. We are not here to tell you to drop your necessary defenses. Force yourself into the center of the room and shatter your quiet world. Not every retreat is a cowardly surrender. Not every silence is a problem that needs to be urgently solved. Perhaps it is time to honor the profound, beautiful architecture of your isolation. You have built a psychological space where you can survive the overwhelming tide of existence. That is not a failure. That is a masterpiece of survival. You have learned how to be your own parent. You have learned how to be your own healer. You do not need to apologize for requiring the dark to see the stars clearly. You do not need to explain why the empty, silent room is your most trusted confidant. Consider the immense strength it takes to sit completely alone with your own shadows. Consider the quiet, terrifying power of a mind that does not need constant external validation to know it is real. Most run from the quiet because they are terrified of what they will hear. You walk into it willingly. Your isolation is not a waiting room for a better, more social life. It is the life. It is the sacred, untouched ground where you forge your absolute truth. When you step into the quiet, you are not disappearing from the world. You are finally arriving at yourself. You are claiming the ultimate agency over your own spirit. Let the external reality have its endless noise. Let the crowd have its frantic, desperate motion. You have found the still point of the turning world. Maybe you can finally give yourself permission to exist exactly as you are, unseen, undisturbed, and entirely, perfectly whole. You do not need to be fixed. The quiet was never a sickness. In absolute silence, the truest self is born.